Availability is the third pillar of the CIA Triad. When we talk about availability in cybersecurity, we are referring to the concept that data or systems or applications must be accessible when needed. So it's not just about storing data, it's about making sure people can access it at the right time. Imagine trying to log into your banking app and it's down. That's a failure of availability. You want to send money urgently to someone and you get to the app, you try to use it, it's saying server failure or something. It can happen because of cyber attacks like distributed denial of service attacks, ransomware. I've talked about these attacks in previous videos. You may please want to check that out. Now let's look at methods to protect availability. One method is redundancy. Many of us practice redundancy without even knowing it. For one, I practice redundancy all the time. I try to have 2 chargers, 2 routers, 2 things so that if one fails, another one can take over. And that's what redundancy is. It ensures that if one component fails, another can take over. For example, I have 2 routers from 2 different internet service providers. Like today, for example, one of the service provider has been very bad since morning and I had to switch to the second one because I always want to be available because of the nature of what I do. I need to be online. I need to make these videos. I need to work on my assignment. I need to read. I need to do a lot of things. So I practice redundancy and I'm sure that many people practice redundancy. You may not see it as redundancy, but when you make arrangements that if something fails, another can take over, you are practicing redundancy. And there are different types of redundancy. We have power redundancy. That's where backup generators come in, UPS systems, and multiple power supplies. For example, I have never seen lights go off in a bank. I don't know if you've seen it, but whenever I go to the bank, I have never experienced light going off. Use power redundancy. They ensure that even if the electricity goes off, there's a backup generator to take over immediately and automatically. And there's also internet redundancy. That's having multiple internet service providers so that if one goes down, another can take over without any interruptions. And we also have server redundancy. Server redundancy is very important, and I will explain it in a bit. And we can have active passive redundancy or load balancing setup. Now look at this diagram. This is an active passive setup. In an active passive setup, the active server is doing the work, but if this fails, this takes over immediately. So this server updates this standby server. This one is just in the background, taking out the information. When this one fails, this kicks in immediately. Now we have load balancing. Load balancing is another way to protect availability. So it distributes the network or application traffic among multiple servers, ensuring that no single server gets overwhelmed. Imagine Instagram or Facebook using one server. That is not possible because they receive billions of requests every day. Billions. How many people on Facebook? Billions of people. Imagine them using one server to process all that requests. It's going to crash. That's where load balancing comes in. In this diagram, clients, that's the users that are requesting for services from the servers. They are accessing the internet. So the load balancer sits in the middle and sends requests to the servers, ensuring that none of these servers are overwhelmed. Now let's look at this in a more practical way. Let's say if this has 50, oh my God, what's this? So if this has 50 requests, so what the load balancer does is that it ensures that this traffic is evenly distributed between these servers. Say this one is sick. This one is sick. For some reason, there's a problem. It cannot take any requests. The load balancer automatically knows and routes traffic to just these 3. So these 3 will be the one managing the traffic coming from the users. And all of these things happen in the background that you will not even know at all. You just see that you're having a seamless experience, but this is what happens in the background. Regular backups. Backups are important. A backup is simply making a copy of your data so that if something happens to the original, you have a spare. And backup is very, very important in cybersecurity. And we'll talk about some types of backups much later in this course. For example, in the event of a ransomware attack, let's say a threat actor locks your data and is requesting for a ransom. you can bring out your backups, pin up your data, and work and go on as usual. But even these days, check actors have now become more smarter. They are now threatening to expose your data. So even if you have backups, there's the risk of having your data being exposed. So that's something to note there. We also have patching, patch management. So patching is when you update your software to fix vulnerabilities or improve its functionality. Many of us have phones. For example, whenever my phone needs a new update, I am notified, and it is good to regularly apply those updates when you see them. So when a vulnerability is discovered in a software, the vendor releases a patch or a fix to resolve the issue. Also, when a vendor releases a patch, it is very important that those patches are applied. But another important thing is that before patches are applied, they should be tested, because new patches can introduce new risks and new vulnerabilities. The CrowdStrike event that happened this year, allegedly a patch was not tested before it was deployed, and it caused a nationwide outage. So it is another aspect of patching that needs to be noted. Also, timely updates. Delaying patches leave systems vulnerable to attack. The longer one waits to patch, the more likely is it that attackers will exploit these vulnerabilities. And that is something you can also take to your personal life. When you see an update on your laptop, make sure you apply those patches immediately. On your phone, make sure you do it in a timely version.